This is it. We're back. For you, it's just another clip. For us, this is day 3 of the Shacknews Game of the Year 2022 deliberations. And we have got a stacked dance card today, folks. We're going to be starting off with most improved game. This is a game that didn't necessarily come out this year, but maybe, made some major improvements. Like perhaps it came back from the dead, something like that. Whatever folks feel like nominating for most improved game, usually an ongoing game though. They have thrown it into the ring here. Let's see what people have to say. All right. Well, it looks like a lot of people have a particular nomination. Bill, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I played this. My nomination, I think the one that you're alluding to is Cyberpunk 2077.
Hmm?
Yes. I actually held off on playing Cyberpunk because, well, one, when it came out, and I'm pretty solid on this opinion. It was not in a good state. I always believed that there was a good game in there, but I think it's well documented how buggy it was and the fact that it had to get ripped off the PlayStation Store because it wasn't in a state that it should even be purchased by someone who owned a PlayStation. Um, yeah, it is well documented that it had a very rough start, and I avoided it at all costs initially. I played it for about 10 hours, I think, so I didn't avoid it at all costs, but I bounced off it very quickly. I mean, the bugs were so bad in it at the time. I had an NPC that was following me around, and it wasn't supposed to be. So I had essentially a buggy companion in Cyberpunk that would just be in every cutscene. If it was serious, if it was casual, it didn't matter, and it just became this running thing. I think I even made a Cortex post about this thing following me around. Um, so when Edge Runners came out and people started talking, you started to hear chatter that Cyberpunk was actually like in a really good spot. So I decided to check it out. And I have to agree. I can't off the top of my head think of any bugs that I've run into. I have the graphic settings on that thing cranked as high as they can go on PC. I'm getting like 120 frames per second in 2K and max settings, and they have um, I can't remember the setting off the top of my head, but the one that does like light reflection and reflections off water and things like that. Um, ray
Ray
tracing.
tracing.
They have an ultra, and then they have something that's just like I think they call it like insane or something like that. That's past ultra, and I mean I've got it set to that. Everything runs very smoothly. Frame rate is solid. It's one of the most gorgeous games I've ever played. I'm really enjoying the game overall right now, and I think that if it had released in this state originally, it'd be a totally different conversation about where Cyberpunk sits in the minds of many. But if anyone out there is thinking like, oh, I'm kind of just waiting for it to get to a good place, how far it's come from when I first played it is it's incredible. It is by far the most improved game for me in 2022.
I
Excellent
mean,
nomination.
if that game isn't broken, that's a pretty big deal. Because I remember trying to play it when it did come out, and the jank was immediate. Like the moment you started playing, it was god awful.
And they knew it was not in good shape. That's why, like, at the last minute, we were getting all those weird things, stipulations about what we could and couldn't show. We only had to use footage they provided. It was really weird.
Well,
No company could ever have a product like that and not know. That's of course they knew.
yeah.
It's also, I mean, I'm glad that it has improved so much, and I'm probably leaning in your direction in this category, Bill. But it's also wild that it took them 2 years ago. We were sitting here talking about, wow, this game is a mess, and it took like that long. It just shows that even a company as prestigious and affluent as CD Projekt Red needed to give their game more time in the oven. Like,
And they
years.
had, and plus, like, you're right, but they'd already done that too. So, like, from when they originally planned to release it, it probably realistically should have come out like 3 years after their initial plans for release. And again, like I'm not sitting here like I was salty, man. Like I loved The Witcher 3 and I was really looking forward to Cyberpunk on a personal level as something to play over the holiday. I came out 2 years ago. And I was really disappointed that I was like I can't enjoy this. So I mean like it's not an excuse to, let anyone off the hook, but objectively like looking at where it was and where it is, I can't think of something that's come that far, but maybe someone else has an idea. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, if
I
we're
don't
going
know.
for like most improved, I think by definition that's kind of the one to beat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a good
It
nomination
had,
for sure.
I mean, the bar was low, granted, like, but yeah, it sounds like that makes it, I might honestly make it seem even more impressive, really.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily more impressive than it really is, but just in general, like, if you have lowered expectations of something and then those lowered expectations still disappoint, there's nowhere to really go but up for Cyberpunk.
And it's not I mean, this isn't exclusively true. Like you could be most improved coming from a good place and you could just get drastically better that no one even saw coming. That is possible, but
Oh.
I think a lot of times TJ's getting ready. I think a lot of
Yeah.
times it does end up going to something that disappointed. So in this regard, like by saying it is most improved, we're also saying we were pretty disappointed previously. Like
Yeah.
when a PlayStation user can say, I nominate you for most improved because I can actually buy you on my platform now, like you're coming from a bad place.
But speaking of a game that might be coming from a good place and just getting better, I think TJ, you might have something to say about that.
Yeah, look at all these broken games that are finally that we're trying to reward because now they're playable. it's 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 offensive to me what some of these companies have gotten away with putting out. And many of those games are on our list of nominations for this because they put these games out in shoddy freaking states and just patch them up over time. We'll fix it in post. Like Cyberpunk, it was a horrid mess, and it's not completely without jank, but they do a better job of hiding it. I will say that the first time I jumped into that game, I have a motorbike I use. I called it up, and the first thing that happened was it sped up to where I was and flipped over its own handlebars and crashed. So that's pretty great. um, I'm going to give it to Guilty Gear because Guilty Gear Strive started in an impeccable place and has only gotten immensely better since. Like that game was already like it was my game of the year in the year it came out because I didn't play anything else that even came close to making me feel as good or making me want to go back as much. And that was the same for this year because they added four new in 2022 alone. They brought four new characters. The meta drastically shifted as they did updates and moved character abilities around. They added a combo recording and library feature in which you can create combos, upload them to an online database, and share them with other players. Or you can go into that database and go find other combos that other people have created for your character and learn them yourself. I think that in and of itself is a freaking awesome feature that should have. I hope other fighting games are watching because I would love to see that kind of thing come to other fighting games. They also added this weird, funny diorama feature where you can take the characters and take different props and create different scenes in the stages with those props. And then it's just on top of the fact that they just keep adding more stuff to the game, more characters, more color packs, and they just keep improving upon it. It was already wonderful, and like I have to say that like the changes that they made to it have definitely affected me because Biken came out this year in January, and she's the character I used in Evo 2022. She's my best character right now. I love her. I like Bridget and I like Sin and I like all the characters that they've come out with. They the other thing they did is like boosted uh they boosted what's the word for it? Representation in the game. Bridget is an openly trans character.
Yeah,
Testament
trans
is a
character.
is a Testament is a non-binary character, and so not only do they have these improvements in the game, but they've also they've taken the stance openly and said this game is for everybody. This game, Guilty Gear, is for everyone, and I love that from a personal standpoint, from a subjective standpoint and objective standpoint. I can't praise the game enough for how much they've supported and improved upon it upon an already good thing.
Oh, well, I think you've made a great case for Guilty Gear Strive, TJ, and I love that game a lot too. Uh, yeah, super fun, and yeah, I haven't played the expansion yet. I haven't played that, but yeah, I think is it better to come from a place where you've got a good game and you're improving, or is it better to make up for mistakes of the past? That's where we are with these two nominations so far, but I believe they're not the last nominations. Denny, you have a nomination in this category.
Yeah, I nominated Battlefield 2042, and that was kind of because of TJ's recommendation originally to actually give the game another try. So I got some friends together and we played it, and the game's actually playable now compared to when I played it week one, and it constantly crashed every single time we tried to play any game together. Or there were the times where like the entire map would implode pretty much, or like people would just randomly die in front of us before even hitting the battlefield. It was completely unstable. But in comparison, me and my friends had a good time recently, and multiple game modes. Some of the new stuff was actually pretty solid. Weapons felt good, which I mean, for the brief moments where I actually got in the match the first time around, nothing felt good at all in the early days. Weight and everything else was inconsistent. There would be times where I was running through like the battlefield or like in a vehicle, and then we would just kind of port through like a wall or something, and then the building would break apart. It was like the physics were all out of whack. Whereas now, everything felt pretty good for the most part. There's some jankiness every once in a while, but I mean that's gonna happen in a game that is this big with so much area around and vehicles involved and that kind of stuff. But I was pleasantly surprised that I can actually play this game now. And unlike Cyberpunk, it's only been about a year or so. So they're at least making some changes a little bit quicker in regard to making it at least something that people might want to be able to put their time into. But yeah, I think that the class system and stuff like that, which was a bit different originally, I kind of like more now with the way that they were doing it. And different classes feel unique, what they can and can't do. I've always been more leaning towards the engineer and stuff like that. And one of my buddies loves to fly, so he's always in the helicopter or a jet or something like that in that regard. So overall, I've been impressed with the game itself actually both feeling good and me being able to play matches consistently. In comparison to stuff like Call of Duty, which I usually avoid. I've always been way more into Battlefield. So this looks like it's going to be in our rotation again now. Rarely, which considering where it was a year ago, where
it had a rocky launch. Yeah, it had a really bad launch.
Yeah, like some of my friends got some quality viral memes going after just a couple of sessions. So it was great for content, but everything else as far as actually playing the game was terrible. So yeah, I'd say it's to TJ's point though. I do understand what he's saying as far as a game being terrible from the start, and then having to build its way up into actually being something that you can play.
Yeah,
but,
it's like having a partner that's like, you're like, oh, they finally started helping with some of the chores and bathing every other day at least, and it's an improvement. And TJ,
it's like they're not leaving a smell around anymore, so that's an improvement from the base level, basically. In comparison to something like Guilty Gear, where they're pretty much setting the standard. Where Capcom usually is the one doing that. They're doing more of those kind of things from both the accessibility standpoint to some of the other stuff. So I get TJ's point
always-
too. I'm willing to be a little bit swung around if necessary, but
I've always
Battlefield, I was at least
viewed-
impressed that it was something that me and my friends love to play usually, and we're back to playing it together. So that itself gave it enough to be nominated, in my opinion.
I've always viewed the category though as not like, I don't look at the category as like, should we reward something bad? You know, I look at it distance traveled. So looking at something that's good, it's like, you know, that's commendable. The reward for that is that Guilty Gear would have been nominated and won more awards because it actually came out in a good state, whereas Cyberpunk, I think, maybe won one award or something like that when it came out, which I think was probably shocking to people. But
I think it was still graphic, like the graphics.
graphics were always good. Yeah, I think that is the one that it definitely did win. But yeah, I always look at it distance traveled, and I mean, I agree with Denny with his statements on Battlefield as well. I mean, Battlefield, I was able to play, and there was fun to be had at launch, but there was no denying you were like, this is you know, you had to work to find your fun. It wasn't like you could just drop in and just be met with like a fun time. It was like, can you piece together an edible meal out of these random ingredients that are stale? So
It's like, what has EA done to my boy? What has he done?
It was my nomination up until I remembered Guilty Gear and how much they've done this year, because when I played that preview session, it knocked my socks off just how much it felt like good Battlefield again. I can't take anything away from that because like it really just shocked the hell out of me to have played a little bit of it when it first launched and the sheer shoddy state it was in, compared to the very stable, very fun, and very enjoyable combat I played in that preview session.
Nice. Sweet. Well, let's see. Do we have any more nominations? Anyone want to put something out there?
Yeah,
At all?
I have a nomination. Yeah, I have a nomination.
All right. What's your nomination, Greg?
So World of Warcraft as most improved game. MMOs are like an acquired taste. Not everyone plays them here. I know Blizzard's had a lot of controversy the last couple years, which sucks. But like in 2016, they introduced borrowed power mechanics, and like Sam and Bill know what this is because it's in Destiny. Sometimes they introduce something cool and unique, and then they take it away for some reason, and you're like, why? Like, why do you do that? Like, add on to the world, keep it in there. You know, Sparrow racing. You know, that should stay in there. It should be a permanent thing. And it annoyed players, and they kept doing it. They did it in Legion expansion, they did it in Draenor, they did it in Battle for Azeroth, and they did it in Shadowlands, and people were tired of it. They want to build onto the world, and in Dragonflight, they took all this feedback since 2016, and they've basically put real-time flying physics into the game now. Like, think of like the Mario cape, like in Dragonflight. So you have like real flying now in that game. That's regimented in the new area for now, but it's going to be introduced in the whole world eventually. They've also changed things like they used to charge for gender swaps. Like it was like $10 or $5 to change your character from male to female. That's free. Like now you can change your character as many times as you want, no cost to you at all. They've also completely revamped the UI. Like before then, if you've ever seen World of Warcraft videos, people have all these third-party plugins. It looks like a complete mess. There's a million things on screen. They've now built in their own custom UI, so you can move things how you want inside the game without having to worry about curse or any other weird add-ons to customize your experience playing. And they've also like stepped it up in this latest expansion with like more representation. There's some gay characters, there's some trans characters that like you go on quests for and work with, and they're very clear about, you know, their sexual identity and their sexual preference, and it's kind of cool to see that in a game that had lost its way for a little bit. And like they've done just so many little additions and fixes visually, aesthetically. I mean, the story is like now you have full blown cutscenes like in these that are animated fully with facial animations, which is great. And they've learned so much from the past expansions, and this expansion feels like the best thing I've played in years, just because of all of these small updates that they've made over the last year, this year and since 2016, because that was when they started the bar power mechanics. I know I'm the only one who plays it. I'm trying to get Donovan to try it a little bit. He's like expressed a little bit of interest, but like I mean but I think it's just really cool to see that. Like I said, I know Blizzard has controversy and stuff, but it's really interesting to see how they listen to their community and how long it takes change to be implemented in a game that old and that big. You know, it's not going to happen overnight. So that would be my
Yeah, and I know you've been going hard on WoW since basically it came out, right, Greg?
Yeah. I've been playing since 2004, right, David? David knows the dates pretty well. 2004 is when it came out, I think, or 2005.
Yeah, November
So I've been playing
2004.
it on and off. And I'm like a weird player too. So like I'm not a min-maxer, I'm not a raider, I'm not a hardcore PvPer. I just kind of play the expansion, enjoy the story, and maybe do some transmog runs. And then, when I get bored, when I hit that wall of grind until you die, I just stop. So I'd like the carrot on the stick.
So you're a reasonable, well-adjusted person. Is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
It's
Right.
not worth
Objection. Gavel. Nope, got to gavel that one. Sorry,
No,
Greg.
hey, I've done a lot of that in games myself. I know. I've been there.
But it's crazy to see in an MMO like actual physics, like actual like flying physics be implemented, because you have to replicate those to everyone on the server. So like when the new flying mechanics they have feel a lot like Super Mario World, where you're doing the cape. So like if you dive down, you pick up speed, and then you can glide up, and then pick up speed and then go forward. It's very indicative of that mechanic, and I think that alone is a really impressive thing to do in an MMO that's what 25 years old, 20 years old, 18 years old.
Just about, yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming up there. Yeah.
It's getting old. Well, there you go. Do we have any other nominations? Well, then, I think we have come to the time where, unless anyone has any cases or arguments or deliberations to make for any of these games, we can take this to a vote. What do y'all say?
Vote.
Oh, all right. TJ Denzer, you're in my little like Brady Bunch window here on Discord. You're the Alice in the middle, right there. So I don't know, Alice. What are you voting for?
I gotta go with Guilty Gear Strive. There's nothing else to be said. I said everything that needed to be said about it. I'm so happy with it.
All right. Well, all right. Let's see. Up next, Morgan. Who are you voting for?
I give it to Cyberpunk 2077.
Cyberpunk. So punk. There's nothing punk about Cyberpunk. I'm sorry. It's made by a major corporation. Keanu Reeves is in it. Keanu Reeves costs a lot of money.
Like,
I'm sorry. Bill. You're muted.
Bill.
I hope you saw me drop my head in disappointment with myself. Cyberpunk.
Yeah, good time with the Cyberpunk. All right. Sam.
Yeah, probably down for Cyberpunk.
Look, my hair wasn't this color before Cyberpunk 2077. I have PTSD from this game. I kind of cringe every time I hear.
What you're saying is you're voting for it for that reason, right?
No.
He's right. The bar was so low when it came out, though. Like it gotta win, right? Because it was like unplayable.
I cannot, in good conscience, vote for that mediocrity after everything it put me through. I do believe in Guilty Gear Strive, though, and I think TJ made a very strong case for it. And it is a game that I have actually enjoyed and was in a good state to begin with. So the fact that it's only getting better, I think, is 100% worth rewarding, because Arc Systems knows what they're doing. That's my take on it. All right, David L. Craddock.
This is maybe one of the toughest categories for me so far, because I feel like TJ, Bill, and Greg all made compelling arguments. And like Greg, I have a special connection to Blizzard games, especially like pre-Blizzard being the worst era games. And like I played WoW in the Friends and Family alpha before it came out, so I saw that game go through a lot. And as Greg said, it's been kind of on this parabolic swing. I'm gonna have to side with Greg. I thought that was a great argument. It's interesting how a near 20-year-old game, which is really the only like big commercial MMO still standing, can continue to improve. I think it shows Blizzard's investment in not only the property but in their fans. So yeah, I'm gonna go with WoW.
Wow.
Wowzers.
Good Owen Wilson. Does anyone have an Owen Wilson queued up on their soundboard?
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Danny. What's your vote, buddy?
I think I'm gonna stick with Battlefield. I got Cyberpunk in mind for a different category. But yeah, I had a good time with the game, and I think it is improved enough to recommend. But if it comes down to it, I might be willing to switch over to Guilty Gear. It gets close.
Well, I mean, you gotta pick your vote now. I can't tell you what anything is, but I can tell you that we got one more vote, one more voter here to go. We have a few absentees to count, so pick
You
that
know what?
hill.
I'll award Guilty Gear for putting together something. Because I do agree with TJ in that it did some things I haven't seen other fighting games do, as far as adding in features that are actually helpful, and setting like a trend for that. So I'm actually hoping that other games add some of those features too moving forward, which shows just how much of an improvement they've added to it over a year.
Yeah.
All right, and Donovan.
I will go with WoW. I'll side with Greg and Blake.
I'm gonna
Not
get him
Blake,
in the
Greg
game
and,
eventually, very slowly. I'm
David
just
on
gonna have him dip his toe in, and I'll hold his hand, and I'll show him what to do, and it'll be fun.
Well, everybody that is here today has had their vote counted. Now we have to talk about the votes for the folks that aren't here. Asif voted for Cyberpunk 2077 as well. And let's see, Ozzy voted for Cyberpunk.
And Steve, don't forget Steve T.
Steve T. It's coming up.
The
next.
infamous Steve.
The Steve T. He's so
He
busy,
voted
he's
for-
not here.
He voted for Cyberpunk as well.
Ooh,
Uh,
yeah. Well, it's a good
3 for
nomination.
3.
These are really good nominations, honestly. These are all
It was
compelling
really
arguments,
it was a horrible launch, and it is definitely improved. Like out of all,
But-
like it's
but I like that we have shown the definition of improved. Like, you don't have to go from just a smoking pile of scrapping, smoking ones and zeros like Cyberpunk. Like, there are different definitions of improved, and I think that's cool.
yeah, absolutely. Bill, did you end up getting a gavel?
No.
All right. Do you wanna just gavel this one? Do you want to
No.
declare it? You're gonna make me do it.
But you have a gavel. You have a wig and a gavel. I'm just sitting here.
Declare,
Are you trying to bait
Declare
Bill into
the
being
winner.
held in contempt?
declare the winner. Declare it the winner, Bill.
The winner, because they went from a 0 to something more than that, is Cyberpunk 2077 as most improved game of 2022, the Shacknews Awards.
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.